Hey guys, I thought I'd just do a quick video to show you my workflow essentially. I don't know how much sort of post-production and things any of you have done, but this might help anyone that's sort of figuring out not the best way. By far the way I work is not the best, it's the way I work. It's a very personalised thing. If anybody can suggest a better way of doing things, I would be most appreciative. So first things first, the way I get pictures off my camera is I just literally go my computer, double click the camera I've already got the photos off, and then just copy and paste them into my photos folder. So if I just go to my photos folder, just over here, the way I name my folders is it goes month, then day, then year, and that's just purely because the way that Windows sorts things alphabetically, it will do the highest number first, sort of second, third. So this sorts by month, then day, then year. I don't put year first because if it's a whole year ago, I've just stuck in a separate folder. It makes it easier. So if I just head down to here, 26th is today. So if I just pop into there, you can see all these files here. Now I shoot in RAW, which is it's just a setting on the camera you can change. You can shoot in JPEG, but there's so many benefits to RAW that there's not really much point in shooting in JPEG. You can see there's two files here. The CR2 file is the RAW file, which is the RAW file is just the pure data that comes off the camera. Like, it's not an image yet, it's just data. Like, it's just a load of ones and zeros sitting there ready to be processed. These files on the right here, the .xmp, are settings for the RAW files. See, I've sort of played around with them a little bit already, so if I just delete these, that'll mean that that's what I would have normally. So just recycle that. So first thing I need to do is, well, I need to sort of have a look at the images. So the easiest way is that you can't do it through Explorer. The easiest way is to just boot up Adobe Bridge. I have CS5, it doesn't make too much difference. A couple of things will be different from CS3, CS2, CS5, etc. So the way I tend to do things is, if you go to your photos folder and 26th down there, you can see here these are all the images. So is it just straight off my camera? These are the RAW files. One of the things is, as I said before, these aren't JPEGs. This is the raw data off the camera. So several benefits this has is that it captures more information than JPEG. So in a JPEG file, if something's overexposed, it's overexposed, like it's pure white. You can't do anything about that. You can darken it, but it will just become a shade of grey. There'll be no texture. For example, skies, there'll be no clouds. It'll just be a dark grey sky. It doesn't work. But with RAW files, it captures more than the sort of spectrum that JPEGs can show. So if you have a little bit overexposed here and there, you can pull that back. The other main benefit I always, by far probably the thing I use the most, is the color balance. But I'll show you that in a minute. If you ever just want to sort of save out any of the images, if you just sort of open them in Camera Raw, sorry, you don't need to load up Photoshop or anything. If you just go down here to the bottom left, the save image, and you can just save out as a JPEG and see all the settings there and location and things like that. But generally I go into Photoshop, do a thing here and there with it. But one of the other things I recommend is, if you come down here to the bottom, I think by default it says the workflow options here. I keep it as Adobe RGB, just out of sort of standardization. One of the things I think by default, this depth thing here will actually be 8 bits. I would recommend turning up to 16. It just makes photoshopping things easier. You won't lose any quality. There's a few things here and there, but you might as well. It doesn't make anything more awkward. So you can ignore the rest of the options really. I think they should be fine by default. But if you just turn it up to 16, it'll make things easier in the long run. But yeah, so if I just press done here. So one of the first things I recommend is, I don't know why this isn't default, but if you just select all your images, just Control A, you go right click, open in Camera Raw. First thing I do is I select all the photos in the sort of the shoot as such, and then I'll enable lens profile corrections. And all this does, this is only available in CS5 I think, and make sure your Camera Raw is most updated. I don't know how you check, but I don't think it's in the default installation. But what it does essentially is remove any sort of distortion in the lens, things like the barrel distortion and things like that. So if I go into here, with my lens this doesn't make too much difference, but with other lenses it can be quite a huge difference. You can see here that it straightens out flat lines. If I had a picture of brick wall, the original would be bowed somehow, and if I enable lens correction, it gets rid of that. Also gets rid of any vignetting around the edges. Now vignetting, it looks pretty cool. Like if you're going for that style, you can go for that style, but I tend to, if I'm going to do it, I kind of cheat and I do it through there's an option up here somewhere, effects, so you can play around with the vignetting here and the midpoint and stuff like that, but it's not my style personally. So we have all these images. So if I select all, make sure the lens correction is on for all of them. If I just press done, you can see these little icons here appearing. The little icons to say yes, you've adjusted things. So other thing about Camera Raw that I was mentioning earlier is the fact that you can play with the color balance. Now normally with a JPEG you would have to set up your white balance before you take your picture, and if you don't, you can modify it in Photoshop, but it causes issues with sort of color banding, where it's sort of ugly jaggedy lines and things like that. But with RAW files, because it's just the raw data off the camera, you can change it post-production and it doesn't cause any issues. You can see here it's very sort of bright, very blue, etc. Generally auto does a pretty good job of balancing, and if it doesn't, you can play with it manually or just go for a shot. You can use these settings here, but well, it doesn't really, it's not great. But flash, maybe that's alright. It's pretty much the same as that, so maybe that'll be right. You can also use the white balance tool up here. If there's anything actually pure white on your image, just throw it on, it should try and autocorrect. As you can see, 5500, and if you go to the flash, 5500, so it's pretty spot on. Now if I just do that with all the photos as well, since they're all in the same set and we didn't adjust anything, I can do that and set it flash to all of them, and it'll automatically correct all of them. So it goes through modifying. Right. Okay, so that's pretty much the first step that I would go through. After this, I'm going to go through my photoshopping sort of workflow. Photoshop. So yeah, I'll see you in the next next video. That's the word I was looking for. Right, okay then. I'll see you guys in a bit.